let's talk about all of the books that I read in the month of July. So, July was an interesting reading month for me. So, I started off the month really strong and then kind of petered out. That being said, let's start with some statistics. So, for the month of July, I read 9 books, which is still very good for me. It is still above the number that I need to read per month to hit my reading goal of 71 books for the year of 2025. So I read 9 books in July. 6 of those books were audiobooks. And that is how that number is so high for this month. I read 1 physical book, 1 Kindle book, and then 1 combination of physical book and audiobook. My average rating for all 9 books was 4.03. So that is pretty darn good. I call that a good reading month. Then the number of pages I read, 4,193. That's a lot. I am very proud of that number. It's nice to see that number be so high. So I really like that. And as of right now, at the end of July, I'm at 80% of my yearly reading goal. So definitely well on the way of reaching my reading goal. The genres that I read for these 9 books, 2 were mystery thrillers, 2 were paranormal romance, 1 was a literary fiction, 3 were fantasy romance or romantasy, and I read 1 historical fiction. I actually got a deep tissue massage today, so I need to be drinking a lot of water. So I will be taking frequent water breaks throughout this video. Let's start off with the July Spinner Wheel TBR picks. So let's get the books out of the way that I didn't read because there were quite a few on the TBR that I did not get to. So the first one was Outlander, and I am on book number 7, which is An Echo in the Bone. Now, I did start this book on July 1st, and I got 65% of the way through in the month of July. That equates to about 900 pages. So I did read 900 pages of this Outlander book. Did not finish it. As of right now today, which is the beginning of August, first week in August, I have 500 pages left in An Echo in the Bone. So my goal is to finish that by the end of August, but I did start it in July and read about 900 pages. So those 900 pages did count. They did count towards my July number of pages read, just because it was so much and it took up so much of my time. And I just didn't get through the whole entire book because it's so big. So Outlander, I count that as a win, even though it's not checked off as a check mark because I didn't finish the book, but I still got through over half of the book. The next one is 100 Years of Solitude, which that was a 100 Years of Books spin for the year of 1967. So that was, according to this Goodreads list that I found, the most popular book in 1967. And I did not get to that book. Then we have The Invitation by Jodi Ellen Malpass, and that was for the newest Kindle book that I had purchased, and I did not get to that book. Then we have The Lion Women of Tehran, and I also did not get to this book. Then we have Wicked Charms by Janet Vanovich, and this was the oldest book on my Goodreads want to read list, and I also did not get to this book. A lot of my time was taken up reading Outlander. So I didn't hardly got to any of those books. And then I added on as an extra book Mistress of Lies by K.M. Enright. And the reason that I added on this book was because book number 2 pre-order through Illumicrate was the very end of July. So I wanted to read a little bit of this or the whole thing and figure out if I wanted to purchase the second special edition in this series. And I read a little bit of this. I think I got through like 2 or 3 chapters and decided that I did not want to purchase the second book as a special edition. So with shipping from the UK, the book would have ended up being between $40 and $45. And with the mixed / bad reviews that I've seen for this book, I just decided that I did not want to spend almost $50 on a book that I might not necessarily like or a series that I might not necessarily like. Just because it was approaching the end of the month and I knew I would not be able to get a significant amount into this book. And I knew I would not be able to get through a significant amount of this book enough to decide if I wanted to buy the second one or not. So that does not mean that I don't want to read this. The first couple chapters that I read were good. I enjoyed them. I liked them. I am interested to know more about this world and these characters. I just ran out of time in the month to finish reading this book. So read a little bit of it. Now, the main chunk of books that I physically read were A Shadow in the Ember. So I finished this book pretty early on in the month. Let me pull up my Fable so that I can give the ratings, find the ratings. So I finished this book pretty early on in the month. Y'all, I love this so much. I love this book so much. So in this book, we are first introduced to Seraphina, and she is immortal and lives in the mortal realm. And she has been promised through a deal that was made by her ancestors, she has been promised to, as the consort to the Primal of Death. And this book basically starts off with the night where she is presenting herself to the Primal of Death and is assuming that she's going to be taken away to marry him. Her goal in this marriage is basically to make him fall in love with her, and this is all in the back of the book, is to make him fall in love with her so that she can kill him, and then that will hopefully restore her country and save it from what is called the rot. So the rot is basically a plague that has spread throughout the kingdom of Lasania. And it's like the ground is no longer fertile. Everything is turning gray. Everything is dying. So the rot over the years has slowly taken over their land and people are dying from famine. Farms and homes are no longer inhabitable. So she thinks that by making the Primal of Death fall in love with her and then killing him, that will end the rot. So that is how this book starts off with. And there's so much more to it. There's so much more to it. Oh my gosh. It's so good. I absolutely love this book. First book in the series, Flesh and Fire series. I've never read these books before. And this was hands down a 5-star read for me. So this is my second 5-star read of 2025. So I've only read 2 5-star books, and this book was so amazing. I love the characters. I love the world building. I loved finding out things that we've read about in the From Blood and Ash series, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's where that came from. I know what's going on here. it's so, like, it fills so many holes, and I mean, not really holes, it just adds so much information and builds on the world, and it's so friggin' great. Oh my gosh, I loved this book so much. So definitely recommend the series. First two audiobooks I finished were short novellas. So the first one was Blonde Hair, Blue Eyes by Karen Slaughter. And this was a short story that followed one of the characters from Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. So I read Pretty Girls in June and read this short story at the very beginning of July. So this short story was about Julia, and she was the sister in Pretty Girls that was kidnapped while she was at college and murdered. This short story was basically about the last day of her life. It was the events of that day and then leading up to her kidnapping. So it was a little bit over 100 pages. I listened to the audiobook and I rated that 4 stars. So that's a pretty good rating, especially for a novella. And I love Karen Slaughter's writing, and so I definitely think that this short story novella really added some detail to that, to Pretty Girls. So I recommend the novella as well, and rated it 4 stars. So then the second novella that I listened to was After Dead by Charlaine Harris, and this comes after the Sookie Stackhouse series, and it basically follows all of the characters that you meet in the entire Sookie Stackhouse series and what they're doing now. What has happened in their life since they were last seen in one of the books. So it was a very fast audiobook. And it was fine. It added more details about what these characters were doing. And honestly, since it had been so long since I read any of the series, I didn't remember who all of these characters were. But the ones that I did remember, it was nice to hear about what they were doing now. And so I feel like if I had read the books in closer sequence, that this would have been an even better read for me, but I rated this book 3 stars. Then the actual, like, full-length audiobook that I finished in the month of July was Beartown by Fredrik Backman. So I finally got to a Fredrik Backman book. And that book was specifically for a Fredrik Backman spin on our spinner wheel. In this book, we are introduced to several main characters. We get several points of view, and honestly, towards the beginning, it was a little bit confusing because I couldn't remember everyone's names and I couldn't remember who was who and what was going on. And I think that partially had to deal with that I was reading the audiobook and not seeing the actual names on the page. So we're introduced to a lot of characters, have a lot of different points of view, but as I continued to listen to the book, I remembered who the characters were and what was going on. So we're introduced to Beartown, which is a small town that is very into hockey. So basically hockey is the whole town's lives. And there are a couple different hockey teams, like depending on the ages. And since this book is based in Europe, it's a little bit different than like the US, where it would be like JV and varsity and then college and then professional. But it's basically kind of like that, where you have like a varsity team and then you have a college team and then you have a professional team. So it's sort of like that. But basically it's the story. My kitty cat is trying to play with the tripod. Silly. Yeah, you're silly. You wanna say hi? You wanna say hi? This is Pascal. Yeah. He's a little white kitty cat. He blends in with my sweatshirt. Hi, BB. You gonna hang out? He's gonna eat some more food. Gosh, he's covered in cat litter. Jeez, Pascal. freaking covered in cat litter. Gross. Okay, so really we're following the town and the players through hockey season, and also through a tragedy that happens to the coach's daughter. So something bad happens to the coach's daughter, and basically the town is then divided on who to believe about what happened and then what to do about it. And I've heard that so many people on BookTube and Bookstagram and everywhere else love this book so much. And I did enjoy the author's writing. I had no qualms with his writing. I thought it was good. I just didn't think that the story was as gripping as I had been led to believe. So I think I just went into this book thinking that it was going to be a lot better than it was, at least in my opinion. So this book was fine. Does it deal with a lot of trauma? Of course it does. But if you're comparing what happens in Beartown, which is kind of a similar situation to like what happens in like Karen Slaughter books, for instance, I think Karen Slaughter does a much better job of writing those kinds of scenarios. But also the Fredrik Backman book was more about the town and how people can get so caught up in something that they kind of are ignoring what's right in front of them. So the book was fine. It wasn't bad, but I do not feel like I need to continue on with the series. I think there are 2 or 3 more books in the series, and the Beartown itself wrapped up well enough that I'm fine just reading the one. And I gave Beartown 3.5 stars. I read all of the audiobooks that were picked on July's Spinner Wheel TBR. So the next audiobook that I finished was My Vampire Plus One by Jenna Levine. And y'all, I like these books so much. I love My Roommate is a Vampire, and I loved this one. I really enjoy this author's writing. I really enjoy like the lightheartedness. I really liked our main characters. Reggie is our male main character, and Amelia was our female main character. And I liked Amelia better than the female main character of My Roommate is a Vampire. And I thought Reggie was hilarious. He is so funny. Some of the things he says are just so outlandish, but it's hilarious. I think I spun and picked this book. I can't remember exactly what the spin was for this book, but I enjoyed the audiobook. I liked the narrator. It was really good. Good listen, easy listen. So in this book, Amelia is single, and she's been single for a while, and her family is bothering her about a boyfriend or a husband or whomever. And she has another one of her cousins' weddings coming up, and she doesn't want to go to this wedding alone again, just to listen to her family and her parents and everyone ask her why she's still single. So she ends up meeting Reggie. They literally run into each other on the street and then end up seeing each other again at a coffee shop. And she decides, well, this is the second time that I've randomly met this person. I'm gonna see if he'll go to my cousin's wedding with me. So she basically makes a deal with him to go to her cousin's wedding for him to be her plus one. And there are a couple instances in there where he goes to her with wedding type events and meets her family. And then obviously their relationship blossoms from there. But the banter back and forth and Reggie's quirkiness. I really enjoyed this book. So I gave my Vampire Plus One 4 stars. Imagine this. I finished another audiobook. So, because in the midst of this, I'm reading Outlander. So, which I didn't finish. So, as I'm finishing audiobooks, I'm still reading Outlander. So, I finished Never Lie by Frida McFadden. And this was for a specific Frida McFadden spinner wheel prompt. And I really liked this book, y'all. So this is the first Frida McFadden book that I've ever read. And I have to say, I really enjoy this author's writing. So in this book, we're introduced to Trisha and Ethan, and they are newlyweds, and they are driving out into basically, I think it's upstate New York, something like that. It's about an hour outside of New York City, and driving to see this house because they're trying to buy a house. So they're going to view this house, and there happens to be a snowstorm. And through very weird circumstances, it would seem at the beginning, Trisha and Ethan get stranded at this house, which is supposedly vacant. And in the snowstorm, because they're driving a BMW and it can't make it down the road because there's too much snow and there are no plows. So they go inside this house that they're supposed to be looking at to buy, that's supposedly abandoned, but they walk in and the place has power and the place has heat and there's food in the fridge, but there's not supposed to be anyone there. So it's all very weird, and you're wondering, like, what is going on right now? Like, why this place is supposed to be abandoned, and then weird things keep happening, and Trisha thinks there's somebody in the house or that it's haunted, and Ethan thinks she is being ridiculous and is basically trying to tell her that she's crazy. And then we also get the point of view of the previous owner of the house, Dr. Adrienne Hale, and she mysteriously disappeared. So she was a psychiatrist, and she would see patients in her home, and then one day she disappeared. And the police accused her boyfriend of murdering her. They never convicted him, couldn't find any evidence, but everyone assumes that it was him who killed her. And while Trisha and Ethan are staying in this house, they're there all weekend, like at least 3 days. And Trisha stumbles upon some cassette tapes from Dr. Hale's therapy sessions with her patients. And she starts to listen to these. So we're not only getting Trisha's point of view, we're getting Dr. Hale's point of view, and we're getting these tapes as a point of view as well. And her, about her patients. And this whole time you're thinking, man, I think I know who did all of this. I honestly thought to myself, like, man, I know who did this. Why am I still listening to this book? Like, I'm pretty sure I know who did it. I just want to know, like, how they basically out themselves, or how it comes out that they're the person that did this thing. So I kept listening to the book, and I kept listening to it. And I got to the end. Not the person I thought it was. Totally flipped the script. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was so good. So I was not expecting it to be who it was, and all the events that happened at the end was not expecting that. It was so good. Definitely worth the read. And the audiobook was very good. I really liked the narrator of the audiobook, so definitely a good listen. So I was talking to one of my really good friends, and she has also listened to several Frida McFadden books, and she was saying the same thing, that the whole book, you're listening to it and you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's this person. Like, why am I listening to it? This is so dumb because I know who it is. And then at the end, bam, not that person. It's somebody else. So definitely tricky. So I rated Never Lie 4.25 stars. Loved it. Then the last audiobook that I listened to, or completed at least, in the month of July was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this was for a seasonal book spin. I decided to take another chance on a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. So I know that she is very beloved on the BookTube and the Book Talk and the whatever platforms. I've read Daisy Jones and the Six and Evelyn Hugo, and I thought they were okay. I wasn't in love with them. They were fine. Honestly, I liked the Daisy Jones TV show better than the book. So I decided to take another chance on another Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and decided that if I did not like this one, that I was just not going to read any more of her books. However, I really enjoyed this book. I liked Malibu Rising the best out of all the ones that I've read, the 3 that I've read. So this is a historical fiction, and we are introduced to four main characters who are siblings. And we're mainly in the point of view of Nina Riva. And her siblings have gone through a difficult upbringing. Their father, Mick Riva, is a famous singer. And he has been absent from their lives basically their whole lives. And their mother raised them. The main timeline takes place in the early 80s, and then you get flashbacks of the parents' lives and how they met, and then the kids being born and growing up. So you get flashbacks basically of 2 different timelines, and the quote present timeline in the early 80s is basically a 24-hour period leading up to the party that the Rivas throw every single year, which is this huge rager that everyone in Malibu comes to. If you know the address to their house, you're invited to this party. No actual formal invitations are sent out, but if you know where their house is, then you're invited to the party. And so they throw this huge rager every year. I really enjoyed hearing about the 4 kids' upbringing and their lives, and the kind of musical aspect to that with their father, and then also about their lives now, and how their brother is one of the brothers, Jay, is a famous surfer, and the other brother starts with an H. And the other brother, Hud, is a photographer, and he photographs his brother while he's surfing. And then Kit is the youngest, and she also wants to be a professional surfer. And Nina, who is a model / surfer, and their lives and kind of the difficulties that they had growing up and their lives now. And I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the author's writing, and I was just drawn into this book much more than the others. And also in this book, you're introduced to Carrie Soto, who obviously is the main female character of Carrie Soto is Back. And so you're supposed to read Malibu Rising before you read the Carrie Soto books. So I ended up giving Malibu Rising 4 stars because I really, really enjoyed it. And the audiobook was excellent too. And I will definitely be reading Carrie Soto is Back eventually. Like, I enjoyed this book so much that I definitely want to read the Carrie Soto book. So I'm glad that I like this book. And then, so I'm going to continue Taylor Jenkins Reid books, or at least Carrie Soto. 2 more books left for the month. So I obviously didn't get through very many physical reads because I was reading Outlander. But I read the physical book of The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout, but also listened to a little bit of the audiobook. So honestly, A Shadow in the Ember put me in a little bit of a slump. Plus, Outlander was taking me so long to get to that it was kind of discouraging that I wasn't finishing it. So it took me longer than I wanted to get through this book, even though I love this book and there's a lot of action and there's a lot of stuff that happens, that I pulled out the audiobook just to keep my mind engaged on the actual reading. So I was tandem reading this while listening to the audiobook while reading the physical book, just so that I would stop getting so distracted, because I found myself like I would read a page and then like my mind would start to wander. And it had nothing to do with the book. It was me. Listening to the audiobook at the same time was helping me stay focused. So The War of Two Queens, we are following Poppy and Cass and their band of friends. And in this book is when the war like officially starts and then concludes. So The War of Two Queens starts and finishes in this book, and a lot of things happen. A lot of fight scenes, rescues, just big life things. And you get reading A Shadow in the Ember before you read War of Two Queens is essential. I mean, it is essential. So I realized that the first time I read this book, I was missing so much stuff because I didn't understand it. So when you read A Shadow in the Ember, you get so much background knowledge on things that are mentioned in here that you understand it so much better. And everything just has a deeper meaning. And the ending, it means so much more when you have the background information and you know what Reaver is talking about in the ending and why. Like, Reaver and Nectis are explaining things and you understand, you get it because you know the background, and so many things just click into place and you're like, oh crap, this is worse than I thought it was. Like, this is really bad. Like, the first time I read this, I was like, oh yeah, you know, there's a dude, he's back. Ugh, that's not great. Now that I've read A Shadow in the Ember, I'm like, oh fuck, he's back? That's really, really bad. That's really bad. Like, how are they gonna do this? So, reading A Shadow in the Ember before you read A War of Two Queens, essential. It adds so much more to the reading experience. You get so much more out of these books. And I love Kieran even more now in these. He's amazing. Obviously, I love Reaver. He is so hilarious. Yeah, just love these characters, love this book, love this world. I gave A War of Two Queens 4.5 stars. 4.5 stars. War of Two Queens was also my Year in Eldia pick, so that is checked off the list because I completed it, and it was for one of the prettiest covers, and I picked the reversible dust jacket for this because it is so pretty, so pretty. Poppy and Reaver, just, I absolutely love it. So then the very last book that I finished in the month of July was a short story in the Blood and Ash series. So this short story is book 4.1. It's called Cupcakes and Kisses, and you can find it on Jennifer L. Armentrout's website for free. It's not very long. It didn't take me hardly any time to read it all. But it is just a little short story about Cass and Poppy that takes place after A War of Two Queens. So it's Poppy's birthday and they're celebrating a little bit, and it honestly kind of gives you a little bit of information about what Cass and Kieran are doing after the War of Two Queens to try to track some people down. So it does actually add a little bit to the story, but it's just, you know, a little short story, a little extra chapter that the author wrote, and I enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars, even though it was short, just because I love the writing and I loved that it actually added something to the story. It wasn't just for nothing. Like, it actually added, even though it was just a little bit, it still added something to the story. So those are the 9 books that I read in the month of July. And I'm happy with the page count. And I'm a little upset that I didn't really get to read a lot of my physical books, because I wanted to actually read this. I wanted to read this one to finish the series, because this is the last in this series, and then I would have completed the series. Also, I really wanted to get to this because not only does it sound interesting, but I think it is very relevant to what the world is going through right now. I think it would have just added a little more awareness, maybe, but I'm sad that I didn't actually get to read these books. So, you know, can't help it that I can't read faster. The Blood and Ash series have honestly been taken priority in my monthly on my monthly TBRs, just because I'm trying to get through both series before the end of September, when Primal of Blood and Ash comes out. So just trying to get through those. But, you know, I still did finish 9 books, even though a couple of them were novellas. Still had a page count almost at 4,200, so that's always good to hear. But leave a comment down below if you have read some of these books that I didn't get to and you really liked them, or if you have read some of the books that I have and you liked them or you didn't like them. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel if you would like, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.